In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Commander Gree in his Phase 1 armor for the Clone Wars animated line. And this is the first release of him in the red and white packaging in 2009 and into 2010. So I got this guy not too long after he was initially released. Commander Gree is one of my favorite clone commanders, or clone troopers in general. So I thought, well, of course I have to have Commander Gree from my collection. And I really like the Cloak of Darkness episode that he was in. It's a shame we didn't get more screen time with Commander Gree. I think he did have a couple cameos and a couple scenes here and there in the later seasons, maybe season 2 even. Well, we didn't really get a whole lot of action with him, unfortunately, which it was deceiving a little bit, because in season 1 there, in the first few episodes, we're getting Commander Gree on screen there, and you think, oh, you know, we're probably going to be following the stories and the campaigns of a lot of these clones from Revenge of the Sith that we see in the movie, and that never really came to fruition. We had Bly and Gree pretty much right off the bat. Neo didn't really get any screen time at all. You got a cameo basically in season 5, and that was it. And Bakara supposedly shows up in season 7 for a quick cameo, but I don't recall seeing him. I would have to go back and check. But we really didn't get a whole lot of action that I think a lot of people wanted from a lot of these clone commanders from Revenge of the Sith. Fortunately, though, we did get a action figure here of Commander Gree in the animated look. And this was also the first time we really saw Commander Gree in his Phase 1 armor. And of course, it's a very neat color scheme. What else can I say about this? Like I said, I got this guy not too long after he was initially released in 2009. I think I got him at Walmart, if I recall correctly. And I also got him around the same time that I got the 41st Elite Corps clones. So it was good timing all around. But don't say anything further. Let's just take a closer look at him. So I think Gree has a very nice color scheme here. You can see he has all this green pattern on his helmet and on his shoulders mostly. He doesn't really have any green on his forearms or on his hands there at all. He does have a little bit of green on his torso there, and then on his thighs. Interesting color scheme. Something unique about Gree that we didn't really see with a lot of the other clones is Hasbro painted that dot that's on their back a gray color for him. Not sure why they did that. It does have a little bit of green on the back of his neck there. And a gray thermal detonator canister instead. I think the elastic band around his hand there is just about at its end. Does have the communicator sculpted on his left forearm there. He does have this bandolier, which you could take off if you wanted to, but I never have. It is a separate piece. Doesn't really hold anything. It almost looks like there's these holes here in it where you can plug in maybe a thermal detonator, but he doesn't have any accessories like that. It gives them some uniqueness. So something else that Commander Gree introduced in his appearance in the Clone Wars is he had an entirely new hair sculpt. He does have a removable helmet here. And this was the first time we saw Commander Gree with a double mohawk. If you recall, and I do have a video of the particular Commander Gree on my channel from the 30th anniversary in 2008. Commander Gree, the action figure there, only had the basic Clone Trooper head and hair sculpt, and a lot of us, for almost a year, that was the established head sculpt for Commander Gree, that a lot of us figured that was what Commander Gree looked like. We never really saw what he looked like beforehand in the Clone Wars series. But after this episode debuted, that's when he had the double mohawk, and I think it's pretty much stayed with him since. It is very unique. So you can see it kind of comes together at the very end, or at the back of his neck there. It's a very nice head sculpt. You can see the creases in his forehead there and on the side of his cheeks. And his hair color too is a little bit more reddish. Something unique. I don't know if everyone was totally sold on the idea of Commander Gree having the double mohawk here. I think over time it's kind of grown on people, but I recall back in 2008 and 9 when the episode premiered and we saw this for the first time, a lot of people were like, ooh, that's not the Commander Gree that I recall seeing. I think some people were on board with it at the time, but I know some weren't. I have to admit, I was kind of taken aback by it at first too, but over time it's like, yeah, it's alright. We see so many clones with the usual hair sculpt anyway, so something different. Helmet does fit on his head pretty good. No problems there. He also does have this holster here with an extra DC-17 pistol. And that's about as much into the holster I can get. It's a very tight fit. And articulation is the exact same of all the clone troopers I reviewed on the channel previously. He is super articulated all around, all the hinges and usual articulation for the clones at the time. But going back to accessories, again, it's pretty standard for a lot of the clones. He has the DC-15 rifle here. He does have the pistol. And he also has the rather large cannon here, which I've never had him carry this at all. Now, one thing I'll note is I recall on a lot of the promo photos for Commander Gree at the time, they had him holding on to the Gatling gun here. And I think even on the packaging, they had him advertised with the Gatling gun here. So for whatever reason, Hasbro decided on the actual production runs of him to include this cannon instead. So just something interesting to note. If you get a chance, go back and take a look at some of the promo art and you'll know what I'm talking about. And you might recall back at this time seeing that. I guess they figured both of these clones were released very close together, so I figured maybe Hasbro was thinking we'll include one with the Gatling gun and then one with this, just to differentiate them, and so it's not the same exact thing. It's very possible. Well, I think that's pretty much all I can tell you about Commander Gree here. Very nice action figure overall. One of my favorite clones in my animated collection. He did have his share of repacks as well. So he was originally released in the red and white packaging. And I know he was in the Shadow of the Dark Side packaging as well. So as far as the clone commanders go, Gree is a little bit more readily accessible than others such as Bly. In fact, he might be just as accessible as the first release of Captain Rex and also Commander Cody, since they all had several repacks in the course of the Clone Wars. But would I recommend Gree for your collection? I definitely would. If you're a big fan of the clone commanders or clones in general, I think Gree's a great one to potentially add to your collection. I just can't get Luminara to hold that lightsaber. They all look really good together. And I'll just bring out one more. We know these two characters have a history together. I'm happy they're all part of my collection. But yeah, Commander Gree is one of my favorite clone commanders, and happy that we got a Phase 1 armor version of him. I think there's also a 5 POA Gree in his Phase 1 look, released in 2015 or 16. I never got that action figure and probably never will. So if you want a Phase 1 Gree for your collection, this is probably the one to get. Even though it's an animated look, you can still mesh them in a little bit with your realistic look. I've done that several times, and I think he blends in all right. But anyways, that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for plenty more reviews in the future. There will always be more to come. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I always appreciate all your support, and check out some links in the description if you haven't done so already. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.